Hello everyone and welcome to Medicated Housewife DIY, where crafting and mental health come together. My name is Sarah. In today's DIY video, we are making two more high-end looking chest of drawers from those plain, boring Dollar Tree wood boxes. You won't believe these brilliant transformations from $1.25 wood boxes into stylish, summer vibe, modern feeling, and just plain stunning decor. Quick and easy, you're gonna love these. So stick around and let's go make some stuff and jump right into this. To begin with, for DIY number one, I am using 3 of those wood boxes from Dollar Tree. We're going to remove the stickers from the bottom and turn the drawer inserts around so that the shape cutout is hidden inside the drawer. We're using the super glue wood glue, also from Dollar Tree, to glue the 3 outer parts of the boxes together, using some clamps to hold them together as they dry. Taking the 3 drawer inserts, I've marked the middle of the front of each of them with a pencil for the next part of this project, and I'm using some small clamps to hold the 3 drawers together while I work. We are not gluing these drawers together. We just want them held together as we work on them. I ended up grabbing some stronger clamps for the drawer inserts, and I'm going to be creating a zigzag pattern using these bamboo skewers from Dollar Tree on the front of these drawers, and that's why I marked the middle. I decided to do this pattern with the drawers held together because I thought it'd be easier to line up my design from drawer to drawer and then just separate the drawers when I was done. That's how I did it, but future Sarah is here to tell you that it would have been easier later if I created this pattern with the skewers separately onto each drawer. So do as I say, not as I do. The first pattern that I did was starting on the middle drawer. I'm cutting 45-degree angles with the skewers and having them meet in the middle, as you can see me do here. And I'm using my miter shears to make the cuts. I'll link that tool for you in the description box below. I'm using the super glue wood glue to glue down the skewers with the 2 skewers meeting together where those 45-degree angles are cut. And when I glue them down, I do attempt to avoid putting any glue over the cracks between each of the drawers in an effort to make it easier to separate them later. It didn't really make that any easier, trust me. For this first part of the design, I just add more and more of the 45-degree angle cut skewers on top of the ones that are already there until I reach the top of this drawer. And my skewers are being cut pretty tiny once we get toward the top. The second part of the design starts in the middle of the first part of the design, with these skewers pointing downward from the middle. And then we add more and more of the skewers underneath the ones that are already glued down. And this is just the pattern that I chose. And you can really use your own discretion on this and make whatever kind of pattern makes you happy. I mean, this is really customizable. There's no rules on it. I used my regular all-purpose clippers to cut these because there were no angle cuts. I'll link that for you below, but scissors will work fine with these skewers as well. At this point, I was kind of winging the pattern, and I decided to do the next part of this pattern pointing upwards from the second part of the pattern, if that makes any sense. Like I said before, pretty much any kind of geometric type pattern will work here and still end up looking pretty cool. And I just kept adding the skewers until there was no empty space left on the front of my drawers. While those skewers dried, I turned my attention to the boxes I had glued together earlier, and I decided I wanted to frame the edges using some wood dowels that I had from Dollar Tree. I measured the dowels on the actual box edges, and I marked the length with a pencil, and then I used my miter shears to cut them all at a 45-degree angle so that I could make 4 square frames to frame out each of those 3 boxes. I gave the edges a quick sanding, and I used the super glue wood glue to attach the frame pieces together and then put that aside to dry. I used my all-purpose clippers to very carefully trim off the excess skewers around the draw fronts. I found that if I put some pressure on top of the skewers as I cut, then less of the skewers would come off of the drawers as I was cutting them. I did lose some of the skewers doing it this way, but they were easy enough to replace with a new skewer after I was done trimming the whole piece. I used a combination of a strong box cutter and the clippers to cut those 3 drawers apart, and that was not pretty. I don't have video of it, but that is why I say to you, you are better off just gluing the skewers onto each draw front separately and trying to line them up, and instead of just doing it with the drawers clamped together, because it becomes a problem to separate them. I was able to do it, but again, it's going to be easier for you if you do them separately. So with my drawers finally separated and all the little missing pieces of skewer that I lost while trimming and separating the drawers are replaced, I was ready to frame out the drawers with some wood dowels, just like we did on the box part of the drawers earlier. I measured the dowels on the draw front, marked them with a pencil, and cut them all at a 45-degree angle to create square frames to go around the edge of each drawer. First, I glued each piece of frame onto the drawers, and then I changed strategies and I started to glue together the frames first and then glue the finished frame onto the draw front. That seemed to be a better way of doing it. I knew that I needed legs for this to give it some height, but I wanted them to be a little modern looking and kind of sleek, so I went simple and grabbed some Tumbling Tower Blocks and glued together a set of legs that were made by gluing together 3 blocks in the shape of a U. That's all there was to it. Super, super simple. I wanted the body of the drawer to be a dark color, so I used FolkArt Home Decor Antique Wax. I'll link it below. And I painted the whole base on all of the sides, but not the inside, just the outside sides. And not the dowel frames. I just wanted the body of it to be this dark brown color. Oh, and also the legs, they were a dark brown color too. For the skewers on the drawer fronts and all of the dowel frames, I used Varathane wood stain in the color Ipswich Pine. I'll link it below. I gave 2 coats of the stain onto the drawers and also the dowel frames on the box that we had painted brown. I wanted to give that some contrast. And this is how DIY number 1 turned out. This is one of my favorite projects of all times because 1, it's totally my style. And 2, I think it's something really unexpected with these little wood boxes. I think this is beyond upscale looking, and I love the modern but kind of exotic feel to it. It also feels summery to me, and I love, love, love the details. I think this would be gorgeous on a coffee table, a dresser, or even a shelf, but I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments if you love this set of drawers as much as I do, and what style would you call it? DIY number 2 begins with 2 of the Dollar Tree wood drawers. I remove the labels and I turn the inserts around so that we are hiding the shape cut out inside the drawer. And I use my super glue wood glue to glue the 2 drawer bases together, clamping them as they dry. I wanted to add a frame and some trim to the base, so I'm using those bamboo skewers from Dollar Tree, and I use my miter shears to cut 45-degree angles on 3 pieces of skewer that will go across the top seam of the 2 wood boxes. And the edges of those 3 skewers will meet up with 3 more pieces of skewer running down the middle seam of the front of the 2 wood boxes that we glued together, as you can see right here. And then I cut 2 simple square frames minus the 4th piece of that frame because we have those 3 skewers in the middle. And I glue those remaining pieces to the front of the 2 drawer bases so that we have 2 frames that meet in the middle where there are 3 skewers running down the middle seam. That sounds super complicated. It's so not. Just look at the video and you'll totally understand. I had some of these loose bamboo beads in my stash that were from, I think, a beaded placemat that I had cut up and used for parts. So I take 2 beads and I glue one on top of the other, and that's what we're going to use as the drawer pulls for both drawers. So I made 2 of them. I marked the middle of the drawer with a pencil and glued those double beads to the middle of the drawers. And somehow, it isn't on camera or anything, but I also used skewers to frame out the edges of those drawers that you're looking at too. I'm using the DAS, I guess DAS, air dry clay, and this small leaf silicone mold. They're both from Amazon, which I'll link for you below. I really enjoy working with clay. I don't know. Do you like that? Let me know in the comments. So I dust the mold with some cornstarch and I make 5 clay leaves. Although they didn't all make it intact into the final project, but I did start out making 5 of them. Now you can just glue your not dry leaves directly onto the wood box and then paint it later when it's all dry, which is probably what I should have done, but I wanted to be able to paint them before I glued them onto the drawers, to paint them separately. So I shaped them into the positions that I wanted them to be while the clay was still soft. I shaped them onto the boxes and I used a lot of painter's tape to try and keep them in those positions without any glue. I also overlapped some leaves between the base and the drawers so that these leaves, they had to be cut down the seam so that all the drawers would still be usable, if that makes any sense. So I cut what needed to be cut and then taped those separate pieces onto the box and the drawers until it could all dry a little bit into the right position. Did you ever stop? I painted the drawer fronts and the bases with a mixture of Waverly White chalk paint and water so that I could have some of that wood grain show through. I left the drawer pulls and all of the trim pieces natural. I used a mixture of Delta Lime Sorbet and Craft Smart green acrylic paint as the base coat for all of my leaves, painting the front and the back of all of them. I will link all the paints that I used below. I painted some of the details on the leaves, like the veins and the stems and the outside of the edges, with some darker and lighter greens for contrast and some depth. I also used a dark brown, I think it's burnt umber, but I will link below, to accent the stem part of the leaves. I glued the dried leaves onto the box using tacky glue from Dollar Tree, and once that had dried, I did coat those leaves with some triple thick gloss. I'll link that for you below to give it a glassy kind of a finish. And I also made legs for this piece, but I did that off camera using the same shape I used for DIY number 1. I made 2 U shapes out of Tumbling Tower Blocks, and I left the color natural. I attached those legs under the piece on a diagonal just to give them a little bit of visual interest. And this is how DIY number 2 turned out. I think this is really cute, and I don't know why, but it really reminds me of the decor on the show The Golden Girls, and I know I'm totally dating myself here, but that's the vibe I'm getting, and I'm kind of into it, if you know what I mean. I love the little leaf details, and I think that this is a great summer project. It's got some beachy feels to it, but I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this chest of drawers, and does it scream Golden Girls to you? And please don't just say you're too young to know what I'm talking about. I already feel too old, okay? Let me know what you think. These are both my Dollar Tree wood box DIYs. I am so pleased with all the wood box projects that I've done. I think these both have a high-end feel, and certainly they look like much more than $1.25 wood boxes from Dollar Tree. But I would love to hear from you. Do you have a favorite? And which one is it? I hope you enjoyed this Medicated Housewife DIY, and if you did, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. It really helps out my channel. Once again, thanks for watching, and until next time, I'm the Medicated Housewife, and crafting is my medication.